Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick and today guys we're going to be jumping down into the world of Singularity NET AGIX. It's been on a little bit of a pump recently, so I do want to kind of spend a little bit of time down on the charts here just reviewing what's going on and whether or not this is an unusual activity or whether we should be thinking fantastic, we're going to the moon and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so as I get into the video, if you find it useful, informative, smash the like button. I appreciate that. It really does help the channel out massively. And if you haven't yet subscribed, then why not do that as well while you're at it? Hit the subscribe, tap the bell and select all the notifications to make sure you never miss another video update. If you haven't joined us in Discord, check it out, linked in the description below. It's a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there. So let's just jump right down into this one. Now there's a lot of fundamental stuff that we could be talking about. And it's actually a reasonably complex subject because AGIX is obviously an AI-based project that's been around for years. Dr. 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘, co-founder and so forth. I think there's a lot of fundamental stuff that we could be talking about. And for more of that detail, then why not join us down in Discord? We can talk a little bit more down there with various things that Singularity NET are doing, building out an entire ecosystem and all that kind of stuff. The migration from Ethereum over to Cardano and so many different things that are going on when it comes to Singularity NET, the AGI token converting into AGIX token and so forth. But in this video, we really want to focus in on the price movement. Obviously, there's been a huge AI narrative really pushing the price action of AGIX, 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘, NewNet, 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗀, which has recently pushed out, I think, a 70x from launch, all the way through to many others. And apologies if I've missed some there. There's quite a big thing going on with AGIX, Singularity NET. And their ecosystem is growing out quite massively. Recently, we did the 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗀 private sale as well, another spin-off from the Singularity Hub. So a lot of things to kind of talk about, but we want to talk about the price action of AGIX in this particular video. So what we're going to do is we're going to review what's going on with smart money concepts on the daily. We'll take a look at Elliott wave theory on the daily, and we'll take a look at the weekly and where we think things are potentially going to be going slightly longer term. We'll start with our smart money concepts because there is a few things here that's quite interesting. So if I just shoot this out just a fraction, we can see that we were right down in our low zone, so around 3.5 cents. This was an area that in our Discord server we were kind of pinging out notifications to say this is a buy zone and all that kind of stuff right in this little sweet spot down here. And we did see a real good run to the upside. We saw a couple of things. We had a change of character once, then had a false flag down here for a bearish one, then followed by another bullish one up here. We now have a bearish one up that side as well. We have moved up very significantly since this started. So down here, we can see that we kind of didn't do terribly too much. If I take the low down here, though, up to this high right here, we can see we moved up 1,749%. And so, for anyone who was accumulating long-term on AGIX down at these lows, they've seen very significant gains so far. We obviously did start to see a little bit of selling pressure. This isn't terribly too unusual, but we should be a little bit cautious here because we do see a couple of things that are interesting to us. One, we have this weak low right inside of our fair value gap here. Okay, that is an indication that we are likely to come down and break this low at some point. We also see equilibrium also right here on a fair value gap. So that's also an interesting point for us where we might see price push up in towards equilibrium. And we have a strong high. This is an indication that we are not likely to break up higher than this existing high. So let's go ahead and give you some numbers here. So the high that's not likely to get pierced anytime soon is 59.012 cents. So that looks like it's going to hold. Our equilibrium is created right inside this fair value gap, and this fair value gap sits between 38.158 and 41.445. Okay, so we can see that right inside there. That's where equilibrium is, and it's also where our fair value gap is. Right now, we can see that we did have a significant surge up in the last couple of days. We can see that we've moved up 30% in the last couple of days, and we did create a bit of a fair value gap down here. And there's no point really noting this one because I do expect us to come back down and fill those out in a little while here. So interestingly, we'll see how that one plays out. Ultimately, the main interesting area for us is actually this one down here. And this one comes in at between 20.9 and 25.6. This one is, as you can see, an area that we've kind of tapped into very briefly and moved right on out of. Okay, and this is where the week low is. So we're expecting to kind of come down here and probably push down lower than 20.989 at some point in the very near future. And so we want to be a little bit cautious of what is going on. Now, that's kind of smart money concepts in a bit of a nutshell. We're in a bearish state of play at the moment, yet to be confirmed as bearish though, and we do see ourselves with potentially two ranges of interest, 38.158 and 41.445. That's going to be your bullish narrative to get us up to equilibrium, find the resistance, and then get rejected. Okay, and it is possible that we push up there just a fraction more. And then we have the lower range, which we're looking to come back to and potentially lose and go down lower than, and that is 20.989 and 25.614. Okay, so that's kind of where that sits. Now, we can see the stochastic RSI on our closed positions are oversold on the smaller time frame, but overbought on these larger ones. So we do know that there's a limited move to the upside here. We can also note right here that we got rejected on our 50 EMA whilst we pushed through that 200. Okay, so this is an indication that we are finding resistance right up here on that 50 EMA, but we do have to at some point come back down and probably find how price reacts to that 200 EMA. Okay, we've pushed through it. Can't confirm whether that is going to be now a support line or not for us. So caution a little bit here as we kind of come through what happens next. Let's go ahead and move that up there. It's actually 38.487. I could see that was slightly off. Okay, so smart money concepts. It looks pretty bearish for now, or at least on this daily chart. And we can expect to see some volatility, possibly a push upwards, just a fraction on the smaller time frames, but ultimately on the smaller, on these larger timeframes, we are looking for moves to the downside. Let's jump on over into our Elliott Wave theory side of things. Okay, so Elliott Wave theory is an interesting structure here. We were calling out this as a potential buy range for us, and it's been kind of pinging up in our Discord server for quite some time. Essentially, this is between 25.513 and 28.573, and we can see that we actually came down a fraction lower than this. So it's good to see that we actually saw some interesting ranges for accumulation to occur. And in fact, I think it's actually slightly lower than this overall. I mean, I can just quickly jump into my Discord server here, and I'll just quickly bring up the exact numbers on that one, because I do think that they are really important that we kind of get the ranging right. So let's go ahead and just take a look here. AGIX was actually, the buy zone was 13 cent to 28 cent. Let me go ahead and see if I can bring this up on the screen. Just 1 second. Let me go ahead and see if I can bring Discord. There we go. So in here we have all of our buy signals. So this is something that we do for our Patreon members, and it's basically driven from my my bot that I created to basically keep an eye on all the zones and then communicate out. So you can see here on the 18th of the 5th, for example, we had this range coming on in, and we can see what the price was. So it's between 13 and 28 cent, and we got down into these lower ranges. This is something that had been happening quite a bit. You can see here on the 17th of the 5th, and if I scroll up even further, you'll be able to see here, over here, we had this one on the 15th of the 5th and so forth, right? So this is something that it isn't unusual that we see that they're happening, but we have obviously been able to then take advantage of that, right? So we know it was in the zone. If you're dollar cost averaging, then of course we're looking for that move to the upside, which we've obviously seen, and it's a reasonably significant one. So we can see here that we had that range. It's actually quite a broad one, and it really just drives us down a little bit deeper within in this range. So we're talking about 13 up to 28, and you can kind of see it more right inside here. We obviously scoped out that little extra area just there as well, which I can't remember why that's scoped out, but it was scoped out for something. Anyway, nonetheless, we can see that the buy zone was there. We communicated that in a Discord. Lots of accumulation occurred within that range, and lots of happy people and all that kind of good stuff. But what was Elliott Wave theory really telling us here? And we've got some interesting things about that. So our structure to the downside here is interesting. We have an irregular flat right in here. Okay, and it's an irregular flat because we have a 5-wave move to the upside that we then break down from, and you can only do that under an irregular or a regular flat, or a flat correction of some kind. A flat correction, let me find some empty space, just a little bit of education here. A flat correction is a 3-wave structure by a 3-wave structure by a 5-wave structure. And that's a really bad 5-wave structure. I'll do one like that. Okay, and what that really is an A, B, C structure like this. And this is normally would break the rules of Elliott Wave theory, because you're not supposed to come down lower than the origin level here on a B wave, right? So that's not normally supposed to happen unless it's a flat correction. And then on an irregular flat correction, the C wave peaks up higher than the A wave. Okay, and so it has to end in 5 waves. It has to be 3, 3, 5. Okay, can't be 5, 3, 5. It has to be 3, 3, 5. And you have to have a couple of rules here. One, the B wave comes down lower than the origin of A, and C wave peaks up higher than the height of A wave, right? So there's a little bit of education for you. We do a whole course on this down in the 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗧 school, linked in the description below if that's of interest to you. And there's a couple of different kind of flat corrections, but this one here is an irregular flat. And that gives us an interesting kind of area just on this side here, because this has to be considered a low point of an A wave structure potentially. This is our B wave structure high, and then we end up with this real big movement to the downside. Now, if we take measurements on this low over here to the high over this side, move it over to the peak here, which if I hover on this candle at the top right hand corner, you'll see the numbers. We're looking for a high of 59.12, so 59.012. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lower this down until I get to there, so a tad higher, but I might just move it a tad lower for this ease of what I'm trying to do here. And what we're looking for is we're looking for that 1.618, but we can see that we actually came down and just stayed above that 1.382, but we did come deeper than the 1 to the 1.236, and that is why that's why that's scoped out. Now I know what's going on there. That was going to be our original C wave structure ending, when we peaked down just a fraction lower. That's what that yellow box was about. And that, so basically we can see that we came down to the 1.382. We didn't quite cross it, but it's right about there, and we bounced from it. That means that this potential, there's potential here now to make this a W, X, Y, and potentially X and Z. Now, in that particular scenario, that works because we do have a zigzag pattern here, right inside there, and we'd look for another zigzag pattern here, and we'd have to cross-reference what's going on in that A wave on the smaller time frames, but I would suspect that's potentially a zigzag too. And therefore, that brings us down slightly deeper again, right back into kind of that buy zone range. So rejection around here and a move to the downside. Now, we're overbought on the daily and 8 hourly and stuff, so we're not talking about massive movements to the downside, but we're looking for a significant move nonetheless to compound this kind of corrective structure that we are seeing here. Then we'll move up, and then we'll have to reassess what happens after that, of course. So for the most part, that's looking really interesting to me. But what about the long-term price appreciation and price aspirations? Well, we can see that here we have this kind of idea. Now, I know, so that's actually, maybe break this backwards, because this is going to sound really awful if I don't explain why I know this. So there was a token called AG and I, right? AGI. And this was the original contract for Singularity Net. It was on the ETH chain, okay? ETH, there you go. And that was on the ETH chain. Now, there was a proposal back in 2020 or 2021, I think it was 2021 to be fair, early 2021, to basically mint an extra 1 billion tokens as they wanted to migrate, as Singularity Net and AGI wanted to move from the ETH chain to the Cardano chain, ADA. Okay, in order to do that, there was a proposal put forward to create a new contract called AGIX. Okay, and so as this happened, a new contract was created for AGIX as that proposal was approved, and it basically meant that they could become a multi-chain, right? They can still stay on ETH, but also, you know, move over to Cardano, which was better Haskell language than Solidity and all that kind of stuff. We interviewed Dr. Ben Goertzel about it. You can check it out on the channel if you want. So AGI became AGIX. Now that's important because on our chart here, we know, or I know, that this is the low for the token that was AGI, not AGIX, because AGIX only came into existence over here. But it's technically the same. Everyone who had AGI basically got airdropped 1-to-1 ratio for AGIX. So you end up basically converting AGI into AGIX. And so we had this low point here. The new tokenomics kick-started. It's a 99-year distribution of the extra 1 billion. All of that stuff's documented. As I said, you can kind of dive into that as and when you want to. But ultimately, this is basically our low point for our A-wave structure. And then we have our high for the A-wave structure. This means that although we can't see the data here, I know that this is where AGI was, and this is where AGIX took over. So we know that there was a low down this side, a peak up here in 2021, a pull back to the downside in July 2022, and we have now this idea that we can reach up towards the $2.97 to $8.66 on completing a typical C-wave structure. Now, we do not have a structure here that looks like we are doing an impulsive structure. We haven't got a leading diagonal haven't got anything like that. So we know that essentially all of this is still very corrective. We might have a couple of impulsive movements in places, but for the most part, it's looking like this is a highly likely or a highly probable area to kind of be thinking about. And as the price is trading at 30 cent, that's not terribly too bad. You'd be looking at what's another 1,000% there to another kind of 3,000 maybe by the time you come at the top end. Now that from our current position doesn't seem like it's amazing gains, but if you were to consider this all the way from where we were up to that kind of low end, you're talking 8,300 upwards towards 23,000%. So pretty decent. And if you were in this for a really long time, such as I was in AGI before it became AGIX, then you're looking at some very significant 39,000%, upwards of 100,000%. So it all depends on how long you've been holding for, dollar cost averaging into and all that kind of good stuff. But there seems to be some good price appreciation here for AGIX in the longer term. But I'm still expecting further downside. Like I said, that range that we had scoped out in our buy zones, in our Discord, and has been communicated many times over, is really just sat there between kind of 13 and 28 cent at the moment. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out over time. But we have some interesting things and interesting developments occurring across some of these different kind of concepts here, and I think there's some good price appreciation to be had here for AGIX in the longer term. So let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below, but I'm going to leave this one right there. If you found it useful and informative, smash that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so you will not miss another video update. If you haven't joined us in Discord, you're missing a trick. Check it out, linked in the description below. Until the next one, have a fantastic day.
We are not financial advisors. None of what we have communicated verbally or in writing here should be considered as financial advice. It is not. Do your own research before investing in any digital asset or affiliate offers, and understand that investing in any crypto is risky. If you do, you need to be prepared to lose your entire investment. This video is for information and entertainment purposes only. All our videos are strictly personal opinions. Please make sure you do your own research and never take our opinions for financial guidance. There are multiple strategies, and not all strategies fit all people. Our videos are not financial advice.